Well, welcome everyone this morning. I appreciate everyone for taking time out of their day to attend this. If you have any questions or any thoughts throughout this entire time, please feel free to speak up. It's not going to be an interruption from me, and I'm certainly welcome any feedback or any conversations or anything that anybody might have. And so, what's in it for you guys? Why are you guys here today? I am an advocate of folks really trying and doing everything that they possibly can to be the best version of themselves for themselves, which in turn allows you to take care of and care for others the best way possible. And so that is my focus, and that's really why I do what I do. And I'll explain why. This journey for me started back in 2010 when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We went to the doctors. At the end of that visit, we were told to come back in 6 weeks or 6 months, and that was it. You know, I really had no understanding of what dementia, Alzheimer's was, and certainly once I did, I kind of made this thing for myself in my head where I said that I was going to care for my mother, I was going to keep her home throughout that entire process, not knowing really what I was in for. And my mom and I went on a journey. It was one of the hardest and the most difficult things that I had ever or probably will ever do in my entire life. But throughout that entire journey, I went through all of the emotions of anger and frustration and resentment and all of these different aspects. Halfway through, I found gratitude. Regardless of where I was or, how I couldn't even see getting through a day, never mind a week, I was just grateful that I was able to give my mother care and comfort that she once gave me, and it really became kind of a poetic thing for us. At the end of that journey in February of 2015, after my mother passed, I did a lot of reflecting. I lost my father when I was a senior in high school. He was 45. I now lost my mother when she was 66, and here I was about to turn 41. So I was really kind of at a loss of, one, what my next direction was going to be. I just spent 6 years as a caregiver and kind of now lost that piece of identity. But I am a very empathetic individual, meaning that I take on a lot of emotions from other people. And so therefore, all of my life, I tried to be the best version of me for somebody else, whatever that meant. And so I decided that I was going to go on this journey of understanding what I wanted because, quite frankly, I didn't know how much time I have, and quite frankly, still don't, and neither do any of us. And so time became my most valuable resource and asset and thing that I cherished. And so I started to look at the power of journaling and what journaling could do for me. But I was I was telling some folks, I was very, very frustrated with the fact that every time I'd open up this positive journal, it was just blank inside, and I didn't really know what to do with that. And so I started to really look to give myself some direction to understand and write down all of the things that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, those things that I seemed to maybe enjoy because something was telling me to maybe follow this, but I didn't really know what to do with it. So what did I do? I wrote it down, and then I figured out, well, how do I want to explore this? How do I want to bring this into my life? And that's really what journaling allowed me to do. It allowed me to understand my time is my most valuable resource, and how am I going to spend that time, and what am I going to do with it? That journey then took me on to really lots of different aspects. When I was at the end of that journey with my mother, I weighed about 290 pounds. I was a completely different version of myself than you see now. Not only physically, but mentally. The way that I thought about myself, what I thought that I could achieve, what I thought that I could do, was just, it's night and day. And the only reason for that was because I decided to be this healthy version. I decided that health was my number one priority, and how was I going to do that? And so my goals from very beginning to where they are now have completely changed. I couldn't even run a mile before. In less than a month, or about a month, actually less than a month, on February 10th, when my mother passed, I'm going to actually row for 24 hours on an indoor rower. During that day, I'm going to look to complete at least probably 4 marathons. So, my physical ability from where I was to where I am now is completely different. And the only thing that has changed was the version that I saw of myself, what I thought that I could do, and the version that I am for everybody else. And so while I was taking care of my mom, I realized that, I may not have been the best version of myself for both of us at that time. And so I gave my mother 100%. I gave her everything that I had, but not being the best version of me, I thought back, I could have had a better experience for both of us. I don't regret, I don't look back on anything that I did. I'm proud of all that has happened. I look forward to say, okay, well, if that's the case, then how do I look at being the best version of me for everyone else that is now watching? How do I be the best spouse? How do I be the best brother? How do I be the best uncle? All of these little aspects that are truly, truly important to me, how to identify what those are and then figure that out. And the only way for me to do that is to always keep these things in front of me. And I do that by journaling. I always think about them. I'm always thinking about where I'm going 3 to 5 years down the road. But what I do today is a direct reflection of what's going to be in my life in 3 months and 6 months. It's not an immediate thing. And so journaling has allowed me to continue to understand my why in everything, which really always kind of points back to my mom and the journey that we went on and kind of where we're going. K Journal, the name of this company, is named after my mom. Her nickname was Kay. And, I'm just excited to be able to talk to you today from a journey that we went on and hopefully give you some aspects and some tips that will allow you to, make some quick impacts for yourself. Any questions or anything so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
What pointed you toward journaling? You didn't really.
Yeah. So, I think that there's a lot of information on journaling out there. You hear great things about people who journal and why, just that there is tremendous power in it. The thing that for me was just very frustrating was no direction. It was really just kind of just this blank page to say, do with it what you want. Well, I didn't really know what to do with it. And so I was looking for some direction, and that's where I started to do something for myself. But there's power in writing things down, moving yourself in that direction by planning out that course of action. So let's just say, for me, weight gain, I had gained weight. I was now 290 pounds. I set a goal and I set a priority. One of my top priorities was my health, regardless. And so I figured out, well, what with my health am I going to do? And so I set a goal about eating better and working out and doing all of these different things for myself. But writing them down allowed me to say, it goes from this unconscious goal to this conscious way of saying, I'm going to write something down. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do it. I'm going to incorporate it into my life. And then when I reach that goal, it gives you such kind of power to now have, instead of unconsciously done something, consciously moved yourself in that direction.
So you're saying that journaling helped you reach your goal?
100%. Because each and every day I thought about it. Journaling helped me, not only be future and mindful thinking, but then reflective on how things are going. Do I enjoy this thing that I now wanted for myself, or is it something that maybe I don't really enjoy and maybe I should, kind of eliminate or kind of pare it back? And so writing things out and thinking and just being in that place allows you to truly be the best version of yourself, because you're not looking at an idea from somebody else. You're listening to yourself. You're thinking about what you want. You're writing that down, and then week after week, you're going back and you're looking at all of this, and you're understanding that, yes, this makes me feel really good. I want to do more of that, and so you do more of that.
I have been doing a gratitude journal every day.
Yes.
a list of certain amount of things every day that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And sometimes it stays the same, and sometimes you add something to it every day, and it kind of helps you get through the day.
It really is a beautiful thing to do. It's part of the journaling that I do every morning. I try to write down at least 10 things. You're right. There are some things that, my wife is usually, always in there somewhere. But I try to be specific about what I'm grateful for. And it really does help you put yourself into a different emotional state. And so writing it down, again, has a lot more power than just potentially thinking about it. You're doing something. Yeah.
Do you have categories that you fill in the blanks? Like boxes?
I do. In the journaling that I set up, it's really geared towards, there's some direction for myself of what do I want to do personally, professionally. And so I'm going to show you some of that on the next slide as to how to, kind of set your week up for success, if you will. But let's go over some of the benefits of journaling. Right now, self-care is really one of the biggest topics that everyone is talking about, right? Like people coming out of COVID, realizing that they needed this before, but yet really haven't maybe been doing that as much as they should have. And so self-care, really journaling is at the heart of self-care. When you sit down and you're quiet and you think about what's going to make you happy, what's going to bring you joy, what's going to bring you peace, whatever it is that you may be looking for, whether it's a goal or any of those things, journaling allows you to be introspective and to listen to your gut and listen to your intuition and to think about, again, what is best for you. And I say that because, had I been taking a little bit better care of myself, my mother and I would have had a different experience. And so it really became my mission to take care of myself the best way possible. And in doing so, I give everyone who's watching, everyone who's close to me, the best version of myself. And in turn, they have then the best experience. And so it really then becomes very kind of full circle for me. And again, so, journaling is really at the heart of it. It really protects your own well-being, your happiness, especially during times of stress. And when you can, have this great habit and benefit for yourself, the more stress that comes into your life, the better you're able to handle it because you can think about it and you can, really just kind of write it all down and put it in front of you. It reduces stress and anxiety. Lots of people get stress and anxiety when they leave just information in their head. And so when you get it out of your head and you put it down on paper, sometimes it doesn't become so worrisome. Maybe it doesn't seem bigger than it really is, and you're able to kind of maybe reduce the fear or anxiety. And typically that's what happens when a lot of people set goals, right? Sometimes they set a goal that's really intimidating, but this is what they really want. But it's a lot to get started. And so the more that you can break things down and writing them down or writing whatever that situation is, writing it down allows you to break it out into manageable pieces, which is always great, instead of leaving this big thought in your head. Mindfulness, forward thinking, being present about what you are doing, why you're doing it, so that, again, you can be your best self. When I say that I want to be the best spouse or to be the best brother, I have what that version looks like. And then any time that, maybe I'm not really acting in accordance to that, or I kind of steer away, it really allows me to kind of come back and look at that and recognize that for myself without somebody else having to tell me. That's fine. Reflection. Reflection is huge. Being able to reflect on, okay, if this is what I want for myself, well, how are things going? And so if you can spend some quiet time just thinking about, what that looks like, it really allows you to then to reevaluate and move forward. And I tell people, when you're talking to yourself, think about talking to the person that you love the most. How would you talk to them? And then talk to yourself the same way. When really what happens, if you're super negative towards yourself, if you're super, you tend to beat ourselves up, that really doesn't do anything for you to move yourself into a different space. You're going to continuously then, be in this, be this version of yourself that you could potentially be more. So it becomes a self-limiting behavior that I really try to, have folks eliminate, because we are all full of so much potential that sometimes goes unrealized because we don't see it for ourselves. Self-confidence, and that's part of the other one, is being able to see that for yourself. And when you write down and you're mindful about moving yourself forward in a direction, you start to again think of, well, what else for myself? What's next? I did this, and what else can I do that maybe I surprise myself with? Growth, none of us want to just kind of stay and exist. And what happened before for me, I've had success in my life, but I realized that I truly wasn't mindful about where I was going, what I was doing, that I was just kind of existing in this world. And when I decided that time was the thing that I wanted to hold most dear, I really became more about the growth that I was doing each and every week, and all of a sudden that growth turns into doing things that we never once thought for ourselves. And it helps with memory. The Journal of Experimental Psychology published research that shows how writing your thoughts down can reduce intrusive thoughts about negative events, improve working memory. So just this single thing of writing down every day, spending 5 minutes, I tell people on a daily basis, just to spend 5 minutes every day writing down things you're grateful for, and then what are your maybe 4 to 5 to 6 priorities for that day, so that you can make sure that you're getting these things accomplished. So,
is there any printout that you're going to be able to share with us about these?
No, but I can. You can 100% take a picture if you guys want. I can also, share this with Alicia, and she can then maybe email it to everyone. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I can email that out to you guys. Okay, so journaling, and so this is the weekly sheet that I originally started for myself. Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are, what we're doing, and not overly reactive or being overwhelmed with what's going on around us. It's a quality that every human being already possesses. It's not something that you have to conjure up or learn how to access it. And so being mindful just means that it's thinking about what is that best self. How do you care for yourself? And it might mean a massage, but it's more than just going and getting a massage. It's more than just going and getting, some of these things. It's really understanding, again, what's going to make me happy, what's going to bring me peace, what's going to bring me joy, whatever you might be, kind of focusing on, and then doing those things that will allow you to feel that way. And so at the beginning of each week, I would sit down and I would say, what's my overarching goal for the week? Like, what am I looking to achieve? And so that changes each and every week as new priorities kind of come in and out of our lives. But before I get too far here, I will say that I have people start off with, and the reason that you can do the goals for the week is because we've already done like a vision board. We've already sat down and wrote out what are some of the goals, what are some of the things that you want for yourself this year, what are some of the things that you want for the next 3 to 5 years, upon retirement, all of those things. And when you look and you understand what you want at the end, you can then work backwards the best way to say, how do I do these things each and every day, each and every week, that will allow me to achieve that thing. Any questions or anything so far? So then, so we have the overall, so what's our main goal for the week? And then I break it down into personal and professional goals. So what do I need to do? What do I want to do? And And there's four quadrants of everybody, and I want you guys to think about a day, 24 hours think about it as a glass jar, okay? We all have priorities, and we all have, there's a urgent, important matrix that we kind of all go by. And, work, kids, different priorities that we have in our life are in quadrant one. That's an urgent, it's important, it's things that we have to do on a daily basis. And so when we fill up that jar, think about that matrix, that box, as just little pebbles. And so that takes up pretty much the majority of our time, right? It maybe goes halfway. And then we have things that we think are urgent, but they're not important, right? So maybe it's returning a phone call, sending emails, these things that have to get done, but they're not necessarily leading towards a goal. They're just tasks that have to be done. Doing laundry, like whatever it is that has to be done at the house, anything, or at work, but it's not leading towards like a future goal. And think about that as sand. And so what happens is you pour the rocks into your day, you pour the sand into your day, and then what happens is that consumes us. And we fill up our rest of the day typically with, I call it water. It's that last quadrant. It's not either important, nor is it urgent. It's just maybe social media, things of that nature. But what we don't typically do is take care of quadrant two, which is ourselves, our future self, the things that we want for ourselves. And think about those as golf balls. So when you've filled up your day with all of this other stuff and you're not thinking about who you are and what you need and planning out that day, all of a sudden at the end of the day, or COVID comes and you're trying to now, fit some of this stuff in, it's really hard to fill up that glass jar with these golf ball sized tasks and things that you need to do because you've already filled up your day with all of these other things. But what happens if you start your day, this jar, you start it fresh, and you put those golf balls, those 4 to 6 priorities, those 4 to 6 things that you need to do, what happens when you put them in first? What happens is that the stones still go in, the sand still goes in, there's just less water. So you still will take care of all of the things that need to be taken care of, but when you make yourself the priority, you just spend time doing things that maybe weren't as important or maybe just aren't right now. You're just putting them off for a future date. So you really allow yourself to be able to, one, take care of who you are and what you're doing without having to realize or compromise any of the other things that are important to you. And so that's really the thought that I want you guys to think about is that your day's still going to look the same, but if you just put yourself first, it's going to really allow you to just see a different version for yourself. And so that's where the personal and professional, where am I now? What are the goals that I have to do this week that maybe are somebody else's priority, but they still have to get done? And then where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And so when you write them down, that's great. And everyone tells you to write down your goals. Perfect. But then what do you do with them next? How are you going to incorporate activities into your day that are going to allow those goals to happen or are going to allow you to take care of yourself? And so this is where I have folks write that in. What's the activity? How many days a week are you going to do that? So for myself, healthy eating was a big thing for me. So twice a week, I would prepare different foods that I knew that I could just kind of pull from that would allow me to eat healthier than picking on something that I typically would when I had a better option now available for myself. It allowed me to then say, okay, well, each and every day, I'm going to get up and run before my day got started so that I didn't have to worry about trying to fit that in somewhere throughout the day. And so I would write that in. I'm going to go 5 days a week, and I'm going to go at 5 a.m. or whatever it was. And so by incorporating and thinking about where I was going to be able to fit that into my week, it then allowed me to be able to make that happen. And so that's really what that grid is about. But then understanding, why are you setting these goals for yourself? Understanding your why. There was plenty of times, shortly after my mom passed, I decided that I was going to do some sort of, memorable event that would kind of just be for, what we went through. And I decided to run a half marathon. So I was a guy that in high school, I was running my 2-mile time trial in the middle of double sessions because I couldn't make it. I hated running. I was not a runner. But I wanted to run this half marathon. And, I remember getting to a day where I had 5 miles to run. And I got down to the end of my street and everything in my body hurt. My shins, my chest, I couldn't breathe. And I stopped and I turned around and I walked home, or I started to walk home. And I was so disappointed in myself because I was just like, I had been running 4 miles. I was feeling really good. And then I thought to myself, you spent 6 years taking care of Mom, and that was the hardest thing that you're ever going to face. This is just pain right now, but you can work through it. And I turned around, I ran those 5 miles. I did it in about 48 minutes, which for me was a great time. But it allowed me, understanding my why, understanding why I was doing this, allowed me to even when I faced that wall and I was thinking that I couldn't do it, understanding that why really allowed me to then push through that and do it anyway. And so a lot of goals that people set for themselves are going to be hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. It could be a new thing that you're starting or a new adventure that you're going into. But don't let that hard or don't let that fear of an unknown stop you. Think about your why. Think about why you're doing the things that you're doing, and that will allow you to get back and get reinvigorated. And then give yourself wins, right? Give yourself some positive thoughts. So each and every week I write down what was important, what was a big win for myself. Did you have a question?
I was just going to make a comment. Another value I see of journaling, I hadn't thought about this before. The idea of journaling is not, I've heard of it, I wasn't quite sure of course value, but I've got a similar story to yours. My wife had dementia. I took care of her. And I had only gotten to about 240 pounds.
Yeah.
But I decided, that a lot of what you're saying, I could see at the point where I no longer took care of her. She was in a facility. But I realized that I did some journaling. I did, at the time, document some of the things that were happening. So now I'm working on something that I call kind of the stories of my life,
Yeah.
my grandkids. And having the journal is valuable for that. So to go back as a reference to write these stories.
For sure.
So that's another, I think,
Yeah.
thing to consider.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
People are journaling.
It gives you a historical, kind of perspective that, you won't be able to look, but even when you look back on it, it's never going to be as clear as when you wrote it down.
That's right. Yeah, I'm using stuff. I'll just put in a little plug here. I'm going to be here March 6th. It's a Monday at 10:30, talking about that, about how I'm writing my stories.
Oh, great.
Using something called Storyworth.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so, yeah, so the left part of this sheet is all forward thinking. It's all about being mindful. And then the right part of it is reflective. How did your week go? Is there anything that you would change? Is there anything that you would do different? So, being forward thinking and writing all of that down is one thing, but if you don't evaluate and then say, is that, did I do the things that I said that I was going to do? Or, maybe I got lazy and I didn't do some of those things. Well, why did I get lazy? Or did some other priority take precedence? Just give myself an understanding of what happened. And it's just realistic, right? Like it was just for me. Nobody else was grading this, so I didn't have to worry about being, fearful of somebody judging me. It really became, me and my journal and my journey, and that was it. And when you focus on you like that, you give yourself a lot more freedom to just to love yourself and to not care what anybody else is going to think, and to do the things that make you happy. And it's freeing and it's liberating and it's a wonderful experience. So yeah, so write down those things. And then, what was your biggest lesson learned this week? If we're going to grow and we're going to be mindful and move ourselves in a different direction, then we always have to be looking for the things that we learn. And that's going to come through maybe just our own, kind of self-reflection, which is great. Other times, things that we learn are kind of out there in front of us and it's hard to ignore. Other times we have to really kind of look for it. And then what are you creating for the next 3 to 5 years? Again, some people find this extremely redundant in the very beginning, and then just having that explanation that the more that you keep in front of you, then the greater those things are going to happen. And so when you lose sight of that 3 to 5 years, it's really easy to let yourself kind of get off track. And so that's what the bulk of the journal looks like. There is a daily page. And I tell people to spend an hour every weekend setting themselves up for the week. And people who are off the wall crazy, I love when they tell me, I just don't have time for that. Well, you don't, because you're sporadic and you're going every which way, and you're a prisoner to somebody else's time. When you do this, you become controlling of, those things don't change. And maybe you're going to be dropping kids off who knows where and all of these different things, or whatever that looks like. But you still own that time because you want to do those things. You want to provide that. But it gives you a different perspective, which is wonderful. So spend an hour, 45 minutes to an hour every week setting up your week. And then I tell people to really spend 5 to 10 minutes every day. Maybe at the end of the day, you take all of the thoughts down, and this is typically what I do, because I lay down to bed, and then everything that I need to do tomorrow that I didn't do today starts running through my head, and then it'd be really hard to fall asleep. So I take the time, I spend 5 minutes after I read at night to just then think about, okay, what does tomorrow look like? And then I wake up every morning, I go for my walk or whatever I'm going to do. And then I sit down and I write, what I'm grateful for, and then I just re-look at what my priorities are. And again, it's 5 minutes at night, it's 5 minutes in the day, just to again make sure that my day is crystal clear and I know where I'm going.
Do you have separate journals for like a gratitude journal, and then a separate journal for organizing your week? And
no, it's all in here on the daily pages. I put in, I've got 10 spaces every morning that I write down what I'm grateful for. And so that's part of it. Again, I tell myself what I love about myself every day. I understand, all of those things. So yeah. So no, it's all, and I put it all kind of in one place just because for me, that's what helped me. I being an empathetic individual, I sometimes have really high highs, low lows, and when I'm not feeling great about myself, I really don't feel great about myself, and I don't feel like I can accomplish much and do any of that. And so what I found with all of these different aspects of really the more positive self-talk, the gratitude, having all of these things in one place really allowed me to get out of those spaces quicker, to realize that the things that are great aren't as great as they seem. The things that are bad aren't as bad as they seem, and it really keep me in a much more kind of even keel, which is great. I can be less reactive and just more perspective. Yeah.
Do you ever write down the bad stuff?
I do, all the time. Yeah. I write down, if I'm feeling bad about something, and then I go back and I look at it and I was just like, yeah, that wasn't so bad. And, really this whole process has truly taught me that today is just, bless you, today is just a moment in time. And it's a small piece of a much larger story. And so stop worrying about all of the different stuff. And the more that I just continuously move myself in that direction and handle all of the things that come my way, that I get to drive my own bus. And that's powerful. But I'm not unique. We're all the same. We're all made up of the same material. We all are our own shining star. And, we all have the ability to just, discover, develop, and then give back to the world what is special about us. And so, yeah. And so that's the journal. I do have, this was me when I was taking care of my mom. And then, at the end of that journey, again, I don't know if you guys remember the Hair Club for Men, the commercials back in the day that he's not just the president, but also a client. I was trying to get a little play on that where, I didn't start this because I took a class and I, wanted to do something. I do what I do because I was able to do something different for myself. I was able to move myself and really see myself in a different perspective and really get the value of what we were doing here with the journal. And the more that I talked about it with other folks, the more that other individuals were kind of interested. And so I decided that maybe there was something there to kind of move forward on. But
I think it's helpful. Like you've outlined sort of.
Yeah.
Because I think I've journaled all my life. I love writing poetry
Yeah.
now. Whether it's copying somebody's that really means something to me or do it my own way.
Yeah.
And, but outlining it like you have kind of pulls it together.
Well, for anything, if you go down and sit with a financial advisor, what's the one thing that they're going to do? They're going to talk about, well, where do you want to be? And then how are we going to make these steps each and every week to then get to that? This is the same thing, but just your life. And it's just, how do you want to outline it? If when we were in school, we had to outline our paper, what was the overall theme? What are the different segments? How do we break it all down? Writing a paper is very daunting, but when you look at different tasks and you separate it out and take small chunks, it becomes manageable. It becomes easy. And this is that same process. When we think about larger things that we want for ourselves, they become daunting and fearful. I remember the first time I wanted to do yoga. For a long time, I heard, I'm super inflexible and I wanted to do yoga. And I remember going there and I was completely intimidated. Apparently I was on time, which is late in yoga, that world, because when class starts, it starts. And so I look in and there wasn't another guy in class. I was late and I remember turning around and going home. And I was just like, nope, not for me today. And it wasn't until a year later with my wife said that she would go with me that I took my first yoga class. And then I was going probably 5 or 6 days a week. But we all have that kind of just whatever it is about ourselves, this kind of fearful thing. Had I walked in, that group would have been more than welcoming, would have made room for me, would have welcomed a newbie into class. It would have been a wonderful experience, but I didn't know that. And so that unknown is a very, very fearful thing. And so it's really difficult to push past that when we've never done something before. But think about anytime you've done something new, what do you say at the end? Oh, that wasn't that bad, right? And so this really allows you to kind of maybe think about something new for yourself, but then break it down into a manageable piece that says, okay, it's not that bad. Any other questions? Yeah, okay.
There's another aspect of journaling that I'm thinking about.
About 30, 40 years ago, I started journaling, not on a daily basis, maybe every other day.
Sure.
And I journal not exactly for that reason, but for processing things that happened to me as a child. And I did a lot of journaling, you know, writing down what happened, the fears, the horror. And I came to forgiveness. And my journal kind of evolved to a forgiveness journal. And along with that, of course, you know, kids dating, my children dating, I wrote down, I can't stand around, you know, that kind of stuff in the journal. And I felt as though it was a big help for my mental health.
It really, well, we talked about, you know, anxiety, depression. When you keep all of these things to yourself and internal, we start to build up different things that we don't necessarily, it's not intentional, it doesn't allow us to push past something. And so, yeah, that's wonderful.
And adding to that, before I came here, I kind of looked at my journals, and I came to a page where I said something about, I wrote all of these things down, and some of them were very personal, some of them were very difficult, and God forbid if I should die today, my kids would read it. So, and this was about 15, 20 years ago that I wrote that.
Yeah.
And I remember going out in the backyard and burning it because I didn't want anybody to see it. And now I regret having done that because I don't remember what it was that I wrote down that I didn't want my kids to see.
Yeah, and more than likely they would laugh at it today. Like it wouldn't have, like, you know what I mean? Like some of it, like some of the, like, oh, I didn't like that person or whatever. Like, you know, it becomes a little bit more, but it also, you know, it creates this historical perspective that maybe somebody else wouldn't have gotten that does allow for burning. Yeah, for sure, because it's.
I throw mine away. I just wrote my note.
Yeah, I'm mad that I did that.
Yeah. You were going to make another.
Yeah, I can see linking this to a spiritual practice in the morning.
For sure.
Like I watch something and listen to something on Netflix called Moving Art.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, 15-minute clips of beautiful scenery and music, and that kind of is the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
And then I could kind of loop that to, okay, this is the time to.
So anytime that you're trying to create a new habit, the best thing to do is piggyback a habit that you already have. And so if you already have a space, maybe you go for a walk every morning, maybe you meditate for, every morning, and that's the way you start your day, then piggyback on that. Get home from the walk and spend 5 minutes in a journal figuring out your day, or after meditation, you've got a nice clear mind, be like, okay, what's my priorities for the day or priorities for the week? It's a great way to add a habit without making this big production, right? Like you can now do something that is great for yourself that, quite frankly, you can easily add in. So yeah, no, that's a great point. Wonderful. Well, that is the majority of. I wanted to also just mention before I leave, I have developed an employee training course that is geared towards people just, again, being their best selves. And so I don't do any coaching during that time, but we go through different modules and skills to help people identify and kind of work through the journal and focus on, kind of who they are, being the best individual, being the best employee, which in return for employers gives them happier, more productive employees. And so I do have this course that is available as well. And that is it. Yes, thank you so much for your time. That's my website. There's journals on there if people were interested in journals. But if you have any questions, I'm always available for a conversation. So if you connect with me on social media, or if on there you can send me a message, I'm happy to answer any questions that people have with regards to journaling and just maybe doing something for themselves or what that looks like. But for sure. Thank you all so much for your time. I truly appreciate you welcoming me here today, so thank you so much.